my fellow Americans.
You might be wondering, why in the world is there a 30-minute countdown before the show starts? Well, we actually start live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time, so this whole 30-minute countdown is a chance for YouTube and Rumble to send out their alerts and notifications, so we encourage you to gather up and hang out with everyone in the chat room. So every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time is when we do this show live. You can join us for the countdown if you like, or just set your clock and reminder that at 4 p.m. Eastern is when we go live. You can also make sure you subscribe and turn on that bell notification, so hopefully you will get a notification.
What do you have to say about dictators of countries like Indonesia, who we sell weapons to, yet they are slaughtering people in East Timor? What do you have to say about Israel, who is slaughtering Palestinians, who impose martial law? What do you have to say about that? Those are our allies. Why do we sell weapons to these countries? Why do we support them? Why do we bomb Iraq when it commits similar problems?
There are various examples of things that are not right in this world, and the United States is trying. I really am surprised that people feel that it is necessary to defend the rights of Saddam Hussein, when what we ought to be thinking about is how to make sure that he does not use weapons of mass destruction.
I'd like to...
Who are shouting? Just a moment.
I'm not defending him in the least. What I am saying is that there needs to be consistent application of U.S. foreign policy. We cannot support people who are committing the same violations because they are political allies. That is not acceptable. We cannot violate UN resolutions when it is convenient to us. You're not answering my question, Madam Albright.
You briefed the press, did you not, when you were there?
Well, I had several jobs. One of my jobs was that of analyst. I also was an interrogator and indeed briefed the press when we, the CIA, wanted to circulate disinformation on a particular issue. Disinformation is not necessarily a lie. It may be a half-truth. And we would pick out a journalist. I would go do the briefing and hope that he would put the information in print.
What was your percentage of success?
We were pretty successful in planning information of a rather rarefied nature. For instance, if we wanted to get across to the American public that the North Vietnamese were building up their force structure in South Vietnam, I would go to a journalist and advise him that in the past 6 months, X number of North Vietnamese forces had come down the Ho Chi Minh Trail system through southern Laos. Now, there is no way a journalist can check that information. That's data derived from radio intercepts, spy in the sky photography. So either he goes with the information or he doesn't, and ordinarily or usually, the journalist would go with it because it looked like some kind of exclusive. Go after these gentlemen. I would be directed to cultivate them, to spend time with them at the Caravel Hotel or the Continental Hotel, to socialize with them, and slowly but surely to try to gain their confidence by dolloping out valid information which was true. And then I would drop into a conversation the data that we wanted to get across, which might not be true. One piece of data, for instance, that we managed to plant in the New Yorker magazine had to do with a supposed North Vietnamese effort in 1973 to develop airfields along the border of South Vietnam. The reason we wanted to plant this information was that we were trying to persuade the U.S. Congress that Saigon should continue to get a great deal of aid and that the North Vietnamese were the chief violators of the ceasefire accord. That was printed in the New Yorker magazine under the byline of Robert Chaplin, as indeed was a great deal of such information which we tried to circulate.
Frank, a two-part question. What were the objectives of or what was the objective of the CIA? What about the moral implications of what you were doing in feeding disinformation? Did the objective override the moral implications, moral problems?
Well, the objective of the agency in general is to generate intelligence and get it back to Washington, to get at the truth and make sure the policymakers understand it. When you plant disinformation, you are diverging from that objective, and I think probably in retrospect, it was very counterproductive. I am, as an ex-CIA agent, opposed to the disinformation activities in which I was involved. I admit that I was involved, and I think it served no useful purpose. Propagandizing the American public or Congress is not the CIA's job. As to the morality of what the CIA was doing or that particular activity, the war was a very relative thing. It was a relativist environment, and morality seldom came into play when you were operating in the field. In my estimation, a CIA man should be amoral. That may sound pretty shocking to somebody, but what if my morality were that of a Nazi or agent, if you will? You wouldn't want me to be your intelligence officer. Keep the morals out of intelligence. Keep the truth in, and stay away from disinformation.
It would have been more appropriate for Mr. Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, to address this House according to Article 144, an article which was specifically designed to debate violations of human rights, democracy, and the rule of law, which is clearly the case with Mr. Trudeau. Then again, a Prime Minister who openly admires the Chinese basic dictatorship, who tramples on fundamental rights by persecuting and criminalizing his own citizens as terrorists just because they dared to stand up to his perverted concept of democracy, should not be allowed to speak in this House at all. Mr. Trudeau, you are a disgrace for any democracy. Please spare us your presence. Thank you.
And it might sound radical, colleagues, but the answer to war is not more war, it's peace. And peace isn't delivered by the barrel of a gun, it's delivered by diplomacy, by dialogue. You can wish away your continent's history, but we share a continent with Russia. We will sit down with Russia. There will be a negotiated peace, and this organisation should be promoting it earlier rather than delaying it and making sure that more Ukrainians die. Your feigning of sympathy rings hollow. It makes me sick, to be honest with you.
We become involved when disinformation poses a threat to the security of our country. It is when there's a connectivity to a threat to our country. It could be a threat, a connectivity to violence. And what this working group does, is precisely what I would think you would want it to do, which is to take a look at the work, the disinformation work that our department has done, and ask the following questions. Do we have policies? Do we have guardrails? Do we have standards?
But here's the problem. We can't even agree. We can't even agree what disinformation is. You can't even agree that it was disinformation, that the Russians fed information to the Steele dossier. If you can't agree to that, how are we ever going to come to an agreement on what is disinformation so you can police it on social media?
Senator, I have 2 points, if I may finish. Number one, that what this office, what this working group does, because it's not an office, what this working group does is ensure that there are guardrails definitions, standards to make sure that the free speech rights, the civil rights, civil liberties, and privacy rights of individuals.
So do you think COVID disinformation threatens our national security?
And number two, if I may, Senator, and number two, is it your proposition that when the cartels spread disinformation with respect to our immigration policies to try to lure vulnerable migrants to our border illegally?
I think you've got no idea what disinformation is, and I don't think the government's capable of it. Do you know who the greatest propagator of disinformation in the history of the world is? The U.S. government. Are you familiar with McNamara, the Pentagon Papers? Are you familiar with George W. Bush and the weapons of mass destruction? Are you familiar with Iran-Contra? I mean, think of all the debates and disputes we've had over the last 50 years in our country. We work them out by debating them. We don't work them out by the government being the arbiter. I don't want you guardrails. I want you to have nothing to do with speech. You think we can't determine, speech by traffickers is disinformation? You think the American people are so stupid they need you to tell them what the truth is? You can't even admit what the truth is with the Steele dossier. I don't trust government to figure out what the truth is. Government is largely disseminating disinformation.
You would know this this is a bit of an aside, but in terms of how you think about problem sets, when I was a cadet, what's the cadet motto at West Point? You will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It was like we had entire training courses.
We had a good discussion on ensuring global energy security and adequate oil supplies to support global economic growth, and that will begin shortly. I'm doing all I can to increase the supply for the United States of America, which I expect to happen. The Saudis share that urgency, and based on our discussions today, I expect we'll see further steps in the coming weeks.
Are you worried about
Hey everyone, just as a reminder, our show starts at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, just a few minutes from now, but I should remind you that we have a daily newsletter. It's totally free. Natalie and I work very hard on it every morning over a cup of coffee, putting the stories together that we think are important that the mainstream media is going to ignore. All you need to do is go to our website. It's just redacted.inc. Put in your email address. We won't ever sell your email to anybody. And then you'll receive a welcome email. And all you need to do is verify that email, and 7 a.m. Eastern Time is when we send out our daily newsletter. And it's about 5 or 10 minutes in length that you can read it over your cup of coffee. And like I said, we cover 4 or 5 of the big stories of the day, plus a couple of things you might have missed while you were sleeping. We try to have some fun with it, add a little humor into it. And again, it's a great way to start off your morning. But it's also a great way for us to stay connected with you as well, because we've been banned and blocked on some of these platforms before, where we haven't been allowed to post anything, not even a community post. So the only way for us to stay connected with you is through our newsletter. We were able to send out a newsletter and say, hey everyone, we're blocked for the next week, and let you know what was actually going on with our show. Anyway, go to redacted.inc and sign up for the free newsletter, and it'll be posted first thing in the morning over your cup of coffee.
One of the hopeful things that I've discovered is that nearly every war that has started in the past 50 years has been a result of media lies. And the media could have stopped it if they had searched deep enough. If they hadn't reprinted government propaganda, they could have stopped it. But what does that mean? Well, that means basically populations don't like wars. And populations have to be fooled into wars. Populations don't willingly and with open eyes go into a war. So if we have a good media environment, then we'll also have a peaceful environment.
You killed a million people in Iraq.
That is a separate...
You killed a million people in Iraq. It's incredible that you have the brass neck to be sitting here now urging another Iraq war
George,
after
if
what
I
you've
was
already
still in
done.
Parliament,
There can be no doubt that Saddam Hussein has biological weapons and the capability to rapidly produce more, many more. And he has the ability to dispense these lethal poisons and diseases in ways that can cause massive death and destruction. If biological weapons seem too terrible to contemplate, chemical weapons are equally chilling. UNMOVIC already laid out much of this, and it is documented for all of us to read in UNSCOM's 1999 report on the subject. If we consider just one category of missing weaponry, 6,500 bombs from the Iran-Iraq war, UNMOVIC says the amount of chemical agent in them would be in the order of 1,000 tons. These quantities of chemical weapons are now unaccounted for. Dr. Blick says, quipped that, quote, mustard gas is not marmalade. You are supposed to know what you did with it. We believe Saddam Hussein knows what he did with it, and he has not come clean with the international community. We have evidence these weapons existed. What we don't have is evidence from Iraq that they have been destroyed or where they are. That is what we are still waiting for.
Okay, inspection worth doing, everybody's agreed it's worth doing, and it gets stopped.
Yes, sir.
At that moment, we're an automatic pilot as far as you're concerned. Period. No ifs, ands, or buts. Now, I respect that. But now, it seems to me the Secretary of State might have a slightly different problem. Secretary of State might be sitting there and saying, now look over there on that side. Now, I remember so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so, and the 12 people on this side, they're all the ones that said they didn't want to use force. Now, I'm going to have to go tell the president now that we should, or Secretary Cohen, unleash whatever it takes to get it done. And our military assessment is the same as the majors. The majors' assessment is, privately held but publicly acknowledged later, that airstrikes alone aren't going to do this. Saddam's not going to cave on this. So, now here's the deal. I recommended the president have at it and let the chips fall where they may. A reasonable position for the Secretary of Defense, the Secretary of State to take. But I respectfully suggest, Major, I respectfully suggest they have a responsibility slightly above your pay grade. Slightly above your pay grade. To decide whether or not to take the nation to war alone. Or to take the nation to war partway. Or to take the nation to war halfway. That's a real tough decision. That's why they get paid the big bucks. That's why they get the limos and you don't. I mean this sincerely. I'm not trying to be flip. Because I think, and that's why I said at the outset, the reason why I'm glad you did what you did, we should come to our milk. We should make a decision. But in terms of whether the Secretary of State has no more to consider than you do as the arms inspector. You didn't get in, didn't get my job done, get me in. Period. You made the deal, right? That's the deal. A deal's a deal. Get me in. Scott Ritter, I'm ready to go. It's not how it works. Now, maybe it should work that way. But wouldn't you acknowledge that if you were President of the United States or the Secretary of State, you'd sit there and say, now, okay, old Scotty boy didn't get in. We said he should get in. We want him to get in. It's important that he does get in. They're not going to let him in, so what are we going to do now? We know that France and Russia aren't going to be with us. We're quite confident China's not. We've already run those traps. They're not there. We're not sure where the United States Senate is, but have at it, boys. Go get them. And by the way, Scott and the boys say air power's not enough. I think it's a legitimate debate, Scott, Major. I think it's a legitimate debate. But I don't think we should be putting it in the context of you have somebody up there at state saying, look, how can we weasel out of this agreement? We want to let this guy out there hanging. We're not this. It's a very practical political decision. Same kind of decision General Powell made. Same kind of decision President Bush made. Every president, every Secretary of State has to do it. Like I said, they get paid more than you. Their job's a hell of a lot more complicated than yours. They may have made the wrong decision, and you brought it to light. We should address it. We should say straight up where we are, and we should do it. And for that, I thank you. But it's above your pay grade.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon, and one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in and talk to me a sec." He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." I said, "We're going to war with Iraq? Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, "I guess they don't know what else to do." He said, "I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we got a good military and we can take down governments." And he said, "I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail." So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, "Are we still going to war with Iraq?" And he said, "Oh, it's worse than that." He reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper. He said, "I just got this down from upstairs," meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, "This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran."
Hey everyone, Clayton here. The show is going to start at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I should remind you that we have a VIP community. It's our Redacted Rebel VIP community. Now, this show is totally free, what you're watching right now, right? You can subscribe here on YouTube and Rumble, totally free. But if you'd like to support independent journalism, we are run by you. Without you guys, we wouldn't be able to do this show. We wouldn't be able to hire the team that we have. We wouldn't be able to afford the servers that we have. We wouldn't be able to afford the reporters that we have, the team that we have. So you can support us by going to redacted.inc, and on the right side of your screen, you'll see a VIP community button. Just click that, and for the price of a cup of coffee once a month, you can support us. We put out exclusive content, early interviews that no one else will see, live streams just for our VIP Rebel community. So again, it's totally free to watch this show, but if you do want to support independent journalism, we would really appreciate it. Come on over to redacted.inc, click on that community button, and decide if you want to sign up or not. It's totally up to you. We thank you. And meanwhile, the show will start in just a few moments at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Well, one of the 4 principal functions of the CIA is to gather intelligence and ideally forward it to the president, the users of information, the policymakers, as they say. There are other functions, however, some of them more legitimate than others. One is to run secret wars, the covert action that's written and talked about so much, like what's happening in Nicaragua today from Honduras. Another thing is to disseminate propaganda to influence people's minds, and this is a major function of the CIA. And unfortunately, of course, it overlaps into the gathering of information. You have contact with a journalist, you will give him true stories, you'll get information from him, you'll also give him false stories. For example, in my war, the Angola war that I helped to manage, 1/3 of my staff was propaganda. Ironically, it's called covert action inside the CIA. Outside, that means the violent part. I had propagandists all over the world, principally in London, Kinshasa, and Zambia. We would take stories which we would write and put them in the Zambia Time, and then pull them out and send them to a journalist on our payroll in Europe. But his cover story, you see, would be that he'd gotten them from his stringer in Lusaka, who had gotten them from the Zambia Time. We had the complicity of the government of Zambia, Kenneth Kaunda, if you will, to put these false stories into his newspapers. But after that point, the journalists, Reuters and AFP, the management was not witting of it. Now, our contact man in Europe was, and we pumped just dozens of stories about Cuban atrocities, Cuban rapists. In one case, we had the Cuban rapists caught and tried by the Ovimbundu maidens who had been their victims, and then we ran photographs that made almost every newspaper in the country of the Cubans being executed by the Ovimbunda women who supposedly had been their victims.
But these were fake photos?
Oh, absolutely. We didn't know of one single atrocity committed by the Cubans. It was pure, raw, false propaganda to create an illusion of communists, eating babies for breakfast and that sort of totally false propaganda.
The only reason that I'm allowed to ask you this question is because today the federal court ruled that the government doesn't have the right to determine who is or is not a journalist. This is the second election in a row that the court had to overturn your government. Do you still insist on being able to make that decision, and why?
First of all, questions around accreditation were handled by the press gallery and the consortium of networks who have strong perspectives on quality journalism and the important information that is shared with Canadians. The reality is organizations like yours that continue to spread misinformation and disinformation on the science around vaccines, around how we're going to actually get through this pandemic and be there for each other and keep our kids safe, is part of why we're seeing such unfortunate anger and lack of understanding of basic science. And quite frankly, I won't call it a media organization, your group of individuals need to take accountability for some of the polarization that we're seeing in this country. And I think Canadians are cluing into the fact that there is a really important decision we take about the kind of country we want to see. And I salute all extraordinary, hardworking journalists that put science and facts at the heart of what they do and ask me tough questions every day, but make sure that they are educating and informing Canadians from a broad range of perspectives, which is the last thing that you guys do.
Whatever our hopes may be for the future, for reducing this threat or living with it, there is no escaping either the gravity or the totality of its challenge to our survival and to our security. A challenge that confronts us in unaccustomed ways in every sphere of human activity. This deadly challenge imposes upon our society two requirements of direct concern, both to the press and to the President. Two requirements that may seem almost contradictory in tone, but which must be reconciled and fulfilled if we are to meet this national peril. I refer first to the need for far greater public information, and second, to the need for far greater official secrecy. The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome into Redacted on this Thursday. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
Thank you so much for joining us. On this show, we seek the truth wherever it leads us, and we are not run by corporate media. We are not run by billionaires. We're supported by you. So thank you for supporting independent journalism, because independent journalism, if you haven't noticed, is under attack left and right, up and down by the deep state right now, being defunded, demonetized, and blocked. We've got a very busy show for you tonight on this Thursday, because reports are pouring in over the amount of Ukrainian soldiers who are turning themselves in, surrendering, laying down weapons. And the Western weapons that are piling up is astonishing. The numbers of Ukrainians surrendering is astonishing. We're going to break down this story for you, but at the same time, NATO is doing something interesting. While all of these surrenders are happening, we need more war, we need more money, and we need more weapons. So we'll look at the latest data.
Plus, we're going to bring you an update about a journalist who was arrested for discussing the Nazi salute in Canadian Parliament. Plus, we're going to tell you about a new law in the European Union, which is supposed to combat disinformation, but instead is being used to spread disinformation. I know it sounds comical, but it's actually true. Plus, we're going to talk about certain people who are being sanctioned because their country has waged war. It is not America, surprisingly enough, and we're going to bring you that update as well, as Redacted starts right now.
All right, welcome into the big show on this Thursday. We don't want to waste any time. We want to get right into the news because we've got a very busy day for you, and we want to get right into it. So let's start right there, and let's talk about the biggest story of the day, which I think inarguably is what's been happening in the war in Ukraine. And we're going to be looking more deeply here in a second. So Ukraine is surrendering. I mean, that is the word. Tens of thousands of Ukrainian soldiers are laying down their weapons and surrendering to Russian troops. This is amazing, right? This is a story the Western media does not want you to see. Over the past few weeks, we've been tracking countless reports of Ukrainian men surrendering before they are to be killed. So you're going to see, like, take a look at your screen here. So these are night vision scenes in Ukraine, night vision capturing many of the moments as Russian forces surround these targets. There they are in the brush. You can see them coming out of the brush, and they're making announcements. Come out, live, or you will be killed. Thankfully, these men are coming out and they are surrendering. Just look at the screen. They're waving the white. Anything you have white that you can wave in your hands right now, please do it. And we will make sure that you are safe, you are taken care of. How many of you are there? Tell us how many of you there are. Don't lie to us. Come out, lay down your weapons, and you will not be hurt. You will not be killed.
Now, we have brought you reports that Russia has been dropping pamphlets to tell them exactly how to surrender so that they don't get hurt. We also know that from NATO reports, from leaked documents, that if they surrender as a unit, they cannot be prosecuted for desertion. So that's why we see them coached with almost identical language as they get in a room. They say, we are all together. They explain that we are command that has been left without weapons, without any training, and we're stranded here and we surrender. There's a formula to this, and we've seen it over and over again. You wouldn't see it if you're only watching CNN, but we've shown it to you.
Oh, no, the Western media is not going to show you this story. I guarantee you, you're not going to see this story on the front pages of the BBC tomorrow, CNN, the New York Times, or other places. You're not going to see reports of the thousands who have been laying down their weapons over the past few days. And here is Rabatino and another surrender that's happening. You can see them coming out of the brush, nighttime, night vision goggles. Again, I mean, they literally could be mowed down at a second's notice, and they're being given refuge. Drop your weapons, lay down your Western weapons, lay down on your face, make sure that you're not having any grenades, and tell us where you're coming from. Is there anyone else left in your, in your troop? If there is, call them out and we will check you to make sure that there's no other explosives on you, and then you will be given shelter, you will be given food, and you will be given medical attention.
But here are some of the 5 points that were published in Jacques Baud, the NATO specialist's book. He says, here are the ways that you surrender safely. This is what Russia is telling Ukraine. Abandon your position and leave the combat zone. Isolate nationalist and SBU, I guess, snitches, for lack of a better word. Record a video message to your command. Say that you've been abandoned by your commanders. And it says, be careful not to cross paths with nationalists whose task is to prevent you from surrendering or backing down by executing you.
Well, we've shown you videos here on the show, and we've been demonetized for showing it. But where you have the nationalists, you have Azov leaders basically shooting and executing Ukrainian soldiers who say that they don't want to fight anymore, so they're being shot. We've shown you those videos here, and that's absolutely what's been happening. And those who have managed to escape have told those stories about what has been happening. We showed you one horrible video where, yes, a commander or somebody ended up pulling a grenade and throwing it right into the room where these defectors were held up. So this afternoon, of course, here's the report. And we'll just go through this article in more detail here on exactly the numbers here, saying, and this is the Gateway Pundit, better call Volga, 10,000 Ukrainian soldiers surrendering as a result of this Volga radio frequency. 10,000 Ukrainian soldiers have surrendered to the Russians using a special 1.49.200 Volga radio frequency, which has been operating since mid-summer. So this is a radio frequency, and you can see it here spray painted on walls all over the place, inside of buildings. Surrender. Use this radio frequency only if you plan to surrender. Let us know your position, and then you will be taken into custody. You will be provided with all necessary medical care, and you will be fed and given food. And of course, this is all coming right now as winter is setting in and getting very, very close to inclement weather arriving within the next 30 days. And so we know what's coming. These poor men who have been dragged into NATO's war, sitting in trenches, freezing to death with no food. I mean, we saw it last year, for crying out loud. Now imagine a year later.
We saw it in May of 2022 in Mariupol, when many units of the Ukrainian army just surrendered and refused to fight. So that did not get better. And so many of them were dragged against their will anyways, but the will continues to mount as they realize this is a losing battle. I'm not going to die for this.
So here's a new video again. Again, these are, I could show you 100 videos. I'm just choosing to show you a few here that came in this afternoon. And here is one from another group of soldiers who used the Volga frequency. They dialed in and said, okay, we're done. We're done. We surrender. And then, of course, you can hear the Russian soldiers asking, how many of you are there? Where are you? Get down on the ground and you will live. Here, watch. Asking, what is your unit number? Who are you? Be honest. Tell us who you are. So come out, put your heads down, hands up, drop your weapons, drop your Western weapons, your U.S. weapons, lay down. The amount of images we've seen over the past few days of all these weapons, these Western weapons, is amazing. Yeah, where are you from? What Western weapons are being used in this? Think about it. Your American tax dollars piling up. Here are just a few of the captured weapons over the past 24 hours. So you can just see, Western weapons lined up there, ready to go after full stocks of ammo and everything else that won't be used to kill people. But it's your American tax dollars hard at work right there, captured. So you want to send more armored vehicles? You want to send more Abrams tanks? As Russia has said, you want to send more of these Leopard tanks, Abrams tanks. The moment they arrive, they will be destroyed. So American tax dollars, you want to send it? We'll destroy it. These men can survive if they come out and lay down their weapons and end this craziness and stop being thrown into the meat grinder. And surrendering these forces, of course, providing vital details to the Russian army, by the way. So as these men have been captured, they've been telling where their positions are. Here's just one example, a Ukrainian officer who voluntarily surrendered yesterday, gave Russian military secret information about spotters of the Ukraine armed forces and asked specifically where they are. He's then given food because he hasn't had food. So here he is telling where they've been located.
Еще раз представься. Капитан, командир роты морского батальона отдельно морского бригада вооруженных сил Украины. Как попал в плен? Добровольно решил сдаться. Добирался до вас 2 суток. Понятно. Что за трофейчик ты нам принес? Телефон, содержащий данные по офицерскому составу, по основным руководящим лицам на южном направлении. Показывай. Куда? Папка на рабочем столе, она единственная. Вот это? С документами, так точно. Дальше. Здесь в хранилище документов. Назад хранилище документов. Здесь надо, где основные, нажать, чтобы отобразились все папки, в том числе и скрытые. Нажимайте основные. Да? Так точно, да, нажимайте. Дальше. Все. Здесь папка request.
So if you're listening to the audio version of this podcast, he's looking at a folder with his unit's positions and the 10th Army Corps position containing all of its commanding officers' positions and data on it that he provided upon his surrender. All of the positions, the position, the type of activity they're carrying out. Guys, like...
And what he said was, I voluntarily surrendered, and it took me 2 days to get here.
Yeah.
And you can imagine what a terrifying 2 days that was. That is like the stuff of a Netflix movie.
Yeah.
Right? And we're pretending like it's not real.
Well, do you remember a few weeks ago we showed it here on the show, which was the video that Russia released, and it was propaganda by all accounts, but it was a Russian piece of propaganda that said, you have a choice, and it showed a Ukrainian soldier running and getting shot in the head. And said, you have a choice. You can either die like this or you can surrender. Are you sick and tired of dressing up as a woman to escape, trying to hide? Your family can't bribe officers to get you out of this war. You have a choice. Just put up your arms and surrender. So they put out this video. They put out this radio frequency, and tens of thousands of Ukrainians are taking them up on it. Now, of course, you're not going to see this in the Western media, and they're not going to share this with you because it would undermine the NATO message of wanting to prolong this war, to throw more Ukrainian men into the meat grinder. And right now, of course, Ukraine is out of men. So they've launched now the full process as we head into the winter of launching campaigns to conscript women. So the campaigns for bringing women into the front lines is the next big phase of this. So enough is enough. Again, the Hill even... Western media knows that we are heading into the winter. Here's the Hill. Clock ticks in Ukraine's offensive as bad weather approaches. And by the way, what is Zelensky doing in all of this right now? Pissing off India, pissing off Poland, pissing off NATO. I don't know. Asking NATO for more weapons, more money.
Pretending he was never in Canada.
Yeah, pretending he was never there. No journalists, as Max Blumenthal earlier today tweeted, there's over 100 hack journalists that are in Kiev right now, Western-backed hack journalists, that none of them will ask the question of Zelensky, like this Nazi, literally right there, this Ukrainian Nazi in parliament. Anything to say on that? No, silence. No Western journalists will ask them that, will ask the regime that. So what is Zelensky doing right now? Well, he's meeting with Jens Stoltenberg, the head of NATO. He's, of course, asking for more money and more weapons. Watch.
Реальність є доказом, що членство України в Альянсі буде абсолютно природнім і таким, що посилює і Україну, і НАТО. Сьогодні ми обговорили з паном генеральним секретарем всі ключові оборонні питання, які потребують уваги, реальну ситуацію на полі бою та потреби українських воїнів.
Yeah. Okay. So we need to join NATO immediately is the message.
I love how he says that Ukraine would strengthen NATO. I mean, that's a poison apple.
Right.
That I don't understand how that calculation works.
Well, of course, they haven't added them to NATO yet. Is this going to be the moment now when you're seeing all of these Ukrainian men surrendering, when they have no army left? Who is going to fight? American men? Are Americans going to be drafted to go and fight this now? This is the hot war that we knew was coming. this is perhaps the moment. This was maybe perhaps all the plan all along, to turn Ukraine into a NATO staging ground for war. As we learned over the past 48 hours, as the Biden administration has basically said, we want to turn Ukraine into a weapons manufacturing hub for NATO. So this is probably all part of the plan. And I really terrified at how this ends, because either that ends with a full surrender, it ends with peace talks, and it ends now, or this is about to get a whole lot worse as we head into this winter. Let us know your thoughts on this in the comments below. Where do we go from here? Really, really troubling. All right, we've got more news to get to here on your Thursday, and a lot of news, actually. We're going to look at how, if you speak out against Justin Trudeau as a journalist in the UK, particularly, you could be arrested. Yes, actually happened over the past 24 hours. A journalist arrested because of calling attention to what happened in Canada. The dictatorship of Justin Trudeau is far and wide. We're also going to look at more details coming out about his cocaine-fueled plane trip to India, and more details emerging on that front from Justin Trudeau as calls for his resignation grow louder. But first, we want to tell you about our friends over at Genucel, because do you think maybe your face aged a bit over the summer, or did it enjoy the summer as much as you did? Well, here is Ella from Rockford, Illinois, saying, I have both aged and acne spots, and this stuff, Genucel, is actually fading both of them. This serum is worth every penny. What she's raving about is the dark spot corrector from Genucel, a must-have now after months of record heat and humidity. Sunspots, brown spots, discoloration, and even red inflamed patches, they all disappear in front of your eyes. Genucel is made and manufactured from just an hour from where we used to live, right in New Jersey. It's a family-owned and operated business with the purest of ingredients, never tested on animals. This is a company we really do like, and I see in the chat some people saying this is some good stuff. You are right. This is the good stuff. And, you only get one face. You should treat your skin like a piece of silk. The Genucel Guaranteed is amazing. You'll see results the very first day, guaranteed or your money back. So take advantage of Genucel's most popular package, which includes the classic Genucel bags and puffiness treatment and immediate effects, all about 70% off. So you can try the best skincare in the world for yourself, completely risk-free. So go to Genucel.com/redacted and start looking years, maybe even decades younger tomorrow. Say goodbye to your dark spots and liver spots and all of that stuff with Genucel. Again, that's Genucel.com/redacted. We really do want to encourage you to support our sponsors, you guys, because the sponsors that are still willing to support independent voices are the ones that deserve our attention more than the ones that are going to say, I don't know, advertise on the Super Bowl, or they're woke, or they suddenly they run
what have you.
They run away once independent media starts talking, and we've seen a couple of advertisers who've bailed on independent media folks over the past week or so. So, again, these are not fair weather friends. It's a free show. We provide a free show for you here, and so they support us again. So if this is a product you need or could use, and it's Christmas time coming up and you want to help support them, then great. So, just want to remind you that they have been supporting us and independent media. And now more than ever, when you see advertisers who support our show, who support other shows that you watch on Rumble, on YouTube that are actually independent, we have to rally around these we have to rally around these companies, because they are few and far between. I will tell you, they are few and far between. The other day, I was watching Kevork Almassian's show, Syriana Analysis, and I noticed that one of his sponsors is a vitamin D, and I was like, I'm buying that. I need vitamin D anyway. So I was like, click. Yes, your vitamin D levels are really, really low. The doctor said, you don't just tell people my medical results. Did I just violate a HIPAA law or something? Okay. Anyway, Kevork, I did that for you, and also I did that for me. Yeah, there you go. Anyway, all right, we've got more news to get to, so let's do it. Well, journalists arrested for exposing Trudeau's Nazi salute the other day in Parliament. That actually just happened in the United Kingdom, yes. We'll get to that part of the story in a moment. But first, will Trudeau resign? chorus of calls now for Trudeau to resign. And we remain on Trudeau watch as new details emerged overnight about Trudeau's cocaine adventures in India. And Trudeau was high, plane full of cocaine. Ex-diplomat makes stunning claims. So we have been learning more information now about just how much cocaine, how long he was out of it, how long the plane was grounded. So again, these reports come to us from Deepak Vohra, and we'll just put it up here on the screen, and you can kind of read along with us here. He's the ex-diplomat who made these shocking claims about Justin Trudeau, about the airplane being filled with cocaine. And he says that basically he missed the G20 dinner because he was high on drugs and out of it. This is a stunning claim. And so he couldn't come to the meetings. The former diplomat also alleged that Canadian Prime Minister's plane was full of cocaine. Now, of course, the Prime Minister's office is coming out and denying all of this. This is in the wake, of course, of the, and by the way, the sniffer dogs were the ones that found the cocaine on Trudeau's airplane. Of course, this comes in the wake of him going through this, divorce. And here's what he has to say. I'll read it verbatim. During Canadian Prime Minister Trudeau's visit to India for the G20 summit this month, his plane was full of cocaine. He also missed the president's dinner, as some people say that he was not in his senses due to the drug consumption. So seeing this, nothing can be said about what goes on in his mind.
Is
Deepak
this
says.
breaking some kind of gentleman's agreement of politicians? I'm shocked to see it.
I know.
I'm shocked to see it in print.
Well, we certainly know the bad relations that have been unfolding between India and Canada.
The gloves are off.
The gloves are off, right? And this is calling. They're like, hey, you wanna do what you're doing to India? Fine, we're pulling the gloves off, and we're going to tell you what Justin Trudeau has been doing in India with his airplane on our tarmac, and the drug sniffing dogs, what they found there. So, will he be forced to resign? Quite a chorus of calls over the past 24 hours for the Prime Minister of Canada to resign.
I mean, there's got to be a record of his attending or not attending diplomatic events. It would be pretty easy to say.
Other eyewitnesses who can confirm he was out of it. He was,
So what are we going to, no, I had some diarrhea, couldn't come out of the room.
I just stayed in the airplane the whole time.
Right. I was really into the season finale of whatever.
He's like, I was Netflix binging.
Stayed back in the plane with Motley Crue.
Yeah, hung out like Uncle Eddie or Cousin Eddie. Crapper's full. I'm just staying out here the whole time.
That's a Christmas Vacation and National Lampoons.
You got a Christmas Vacation reference there, but
that was good. I liked it.
Meanwhile, a bombshell out of the UK tonight on Justin Trudeau, where a UK journalist was arrested for reporting about Justin Trudeau, covering the story, essentially. This comes to us from Sputnik and reported on multiple news outlets. A UK journo arrested for malinformation after exposing Trudeau applauding a Nazi. So if you speak out against Trudeau, you could be arrested. That's exactly what happened. And I'm just going to go through the piece. UK journalist arrested for malinformation after exposing truth about Trudeau. A British journalist was arrested after he exposed the truth about Canadian Parliament's lauding of a Ukrainian Nazi SS Waffen member. The Waffen SS member, as British police clamp down on anybody sharing mainstream news on the internet. The British government has ordered law enforcement officials to begin arresting and prosecuting citizens who share non-mainstream opinions online that fact checkers disagree with, following the passing of the online safety bill last week. UK authorities now have the power to punish citizens who share anything deemed hateful or labeled as misinformation on social media. So Warren Thornton was hosting an edition of this podcast called The Real Truth on the evening of Sunday, September 24th, when police officers knocked at his door. The blogger has been critical on social media of NATO's support to Ukraine and the history of the 98-year-old Ontario resident, Yaroslav Hunka, who was given a standing ovation in House of Parliament this week, House of Commons. Then guest Fiona Ryan recounted how Warren Thornton suddenly vanished 20 minutes before the show ended, and she was talking with the fellow guest, Johnny, host of the Cafe Revolution YouTube channel based in Donetsk. And then suddenly, as Thornton was confirmed that the officers from the regional cybercrime unit invited him to be interviewed. When he declined, they put him under arrest, drove him into a police station in Bristol, many miles from his home. They attempted to serve him with a formal caution for malinformation in relation to 16 videos he'd posted on social media.
Is that against the law?
I mean, in the UK, apparently, I guess you can't. And this is exactly, of course, what Canada is trying to do, and trying to ban the truth in Canada as well by internet censorship and making sure that the Canadian government has a clampdown on what is and what is not allowed to be presented.
Yeah, we're going to talk next about laws in the EU about censorship. The EU still does have a freedom of expression law on the books, but we'll see how much that is put into place. Also, if we can bring up the laptop of what I just sent you, you'll notice now that in Canada, users have submitted to Wikipedia for an edit of Jaroslav Hunka, who is the member of the Nazi Party that was saluted by Canadian Parliament. If you take a look at his Wikipedia page, you can see here this note. This article is being considered for deletion in accordance to Wikipedia's deletion policy, because users are trying to get it removed that he was ever in Parliament or a member of Parliament. So now they're working to remove this, just strike it from the record. It didn't happen.
It didn't exist.
Embarrassed us. We're working to, it says, please share your thoughts on this article's deletion discussion page.
Well, this is exactly what David Creighton spoke about on our show yesterday, which is that the Trudeau government, of course, attempted to wipe from the parliamentary record that he ever appeared there and was given a standing ovation. They literally tried to rewrite history. They tried to write out that he did not appear there he was not on camera. He was not a part of this standing ovation, and from the official record. So if 100 years from now you were going through the historical record of Parliament, there would be a blank spot. It would be removed and deleted. Fortunately, the opposition stood up and said, we're not voting for that. Absolutely not. It will be part of the historical record.
How would the historical record then explain, like, the Speaker of Parliament stepping down?
Diarrhea. Everyone in Canada has diarrhea.
Yeah, he ate too much poutine. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. How would you? Why did he step down? He just was having a bad day, and he just decided to step down. You'd have to take out the whole chunk then,
right? And some of the arguments that are presented here in Wikipedia for deletion is like, this man is only famous for one event, not notable, or he's not famous enough. He's not notable. I mean,
actually, he is pretty famous, because it turns out in 2007, the Canadian Parliament also honored the guy.
Right.
Back in 2007.
Yes.
So this isn't like some new revelation. The Canadian Parliament had a record of the guy, had honored him previously, and did it again in front with Zelensky in town.
Yeah. So
hey, Zelensky's here. Do we have any Nazis we can call? Like, he likes these guys. Can we get these guys to show up in Parliament? These are his guys. These are his people.
Apparently. So, if you have any thoughts about this, you can bring in on the Wikipedia discussion page
this just goes to show you how
say,
corrupt.
like, we cannot delete things that we don't like.
How corrupt Wikipedia is.
I love that, like, the liberal establishment canceling itself.
Right.
For things it doesn't like. We didn't do that. Let's cancel that.
That didn't happen. Selective memory, right? That didn't happen. That didn't happen at all. We've got more news to get to here on your Thursday. We're going to talk about this information control and who is responsible for the information on the internet. We're also going to look at the billionaire privilege. Why is it that they can go after Russian oligarchs? Because Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine. But when the United States invades all of these countries, why is Jeff Bezos allowed to have his yacht parked in wherever he wants to be parked? America is involved in multiple illegal invasions right now. So why are they safe? Why are American oligarchs safe when the United States invades other countries? We will get there. But first, if you are interested in building long-term wealth, then listen up. The number one way to build wealth in the United States is by owning cash-flowing real estate. It is the ultimate hedge against inflation. It has the ultimate tax benefits. There is no better asset class in America to own than real estate from a wealth building perspective. And there are single family rentals now available at a very low price point that you can own as an investor using financing built right in. And so our team at Morris Invest offers full service rental real estate to help you build wealth while protecting money from inflation and taxes. Now, our team just finished building 40 brand new construction, a limited number of single family homes in West Texas, about a 10 minutes drive from Texas Tech University. They're very affordable. These are our most popular units, by the way, because they're under 200,000 and they sell very, very fast. So we just completed 40 of them. They're all completed. They are ready to go. They are ready to be rented up with an 18% internal rate of return. Built in the best school districts in the top growth markets. This is one of the kitchens. This is the blueprint here. You can see this is one of the actual homes here. You can see it as it was finished, and you can see the walkthrough of the property, the construction, the stainless steel appliances, and all of those things here in this property. You're buying the price at or below market value. Okay, at or below market value. Principal reduction as your tenant does pay for the asset, steady increase in appreciation and equity, as well as rents. Huge tax benefits, of course, for owning this. And we're actually doing some extra bulk benefits right now if you lock one of these in before October 31st. Anyone who goes under contract on one of these, again, we only have 40 of them left. Before October 31st, one of the incentives is a special lending rate buy down. So where lending rates are right now, a lending rate buy down. So all you need to do is book a call with the team, go to morrisinvest.com, or the link there on your screen, redacted.inc/invest. Either one will take you there, but you go to morrisinvest.com or redacted.inc/invest, whatever's easiest for you. That way you can book a call with the team, and a little calendar will pop up on your screen where you can pick on your calendar the time that is best for you, and then our team will give you a call and talk you through it and see if it's a fit for you. Again, financing built in. These are all done. We only have 40 of them left, and if you lock it in before October 31st, they'll have a special lending rate buy down as well. So, and even if you don't do anything, you'll just come away with some great valuable insight talking to the team and seeing if like real estate investing in the future is great for you. And we've got tons of education stuff over there that you can also see. So this is something we're very, very passionate about. So check it out if it's of interest to you. And hey, I see Jaden. Thank you guys for subscribing to the show. We really, really appreciate it. If you do subscribe, your name will pop up here on the big screen. And thank you guys so much for supporting independent media. If you smash that like button, it actually pushes the show further out into the YouTube algorithm, which loves to suppress independent media. So I can see we have about 7,000 people who've liked the show so far. If you smash that like button, again, it pushes it further out into the algorithm. So thank you guys so much.
It really does work. Thank you so much for doing that. We had a super chat earlier about covering Serbia and Kosovo. That's not on the agenda tonight, but it is something that we do cover.
It is something
often.
We're working on, by the way. It is, we are working on it. So hopefully early next week, we will have an update on what's happening with Kosovo and NATO provocation in Serbia.
Right. Okay. But first, is Vladimir Putin working with Elon Musk to spread disinformation on Twitter? Everything that you say, is it from Russian bots? That's what the European Union wants you to believe. They say it's all Elon Musk's fault. He can't control Twitter, and it's all those Russians getting in there with social media. And the mainstream media is falling right in line with this lie, just like this steaming pile of lies from the BBC, which was posted just yesterday. So look at the headline: Russian disinformation most active on X, formerly known as Twitter, EU says. So this headline is just almost irresistible to the mainstream media. It's all the things that they love to hate on. Is Putin, Russia, Elon Musk. It's a gimme, right? All in one go. Well, what the EU is saying here is that Elon Musk doesn't have a handle on Russian disinformation, and the BBC is happily going along with it like a good dog. And we know that the EU had it out for Musk from the day he announced that he had bought Twitter. Do you remember this tweet? This is from Terry Breton, a European commissioner, when Elon Musk said the bird is free. They said, oh, in Europe, the bird will fly by our rules. Well, what are the rules for expression in Europe? It's worth noting. Article 11 of the EU's Charter of Fundamental Freedoms guarantees freedom of expression. That's still a thing.
Really?
Yes.
You can do that?
It is still a thing written down for European citizens.
Not enforced, I guess.
Right. Everyone has the right to freedom of expression, and freedom and pluralism of the media shall be respected. Okay. So it's clear that EU politicians don't value freedom of expression as much as the written charters do. With this in mind, watch how European Commissioner Vera Jourova blames blames disinformation on Twitter directly on Russia. Look at this quote from the headline that I just showed you, the BBC headline saying it's bad. Russian disinformation is really bad, mostly on Twitter. She says the Russian state has engaged in the war of ideas to pollute our information space with half-truths and lies to create a false image that democracy is no better than autocracy. Russia was aiming at a multi-million euro weapon of mass manipulation, she says. The threat was particularly serious because of the war in Ukraine and the upcoming European elections. Okay, how does she know that? How does she know that Russians are really vociferous and active on Twitter? Well, she uses as proof this EU study that was commissioned by the European Union by a disinformation monitoring startup called Trust Lab, which compiled this report, Code of Practice on Disinformation. Incidentally, Trust Lab is a partner with the CIA. So I'm not sure that this report will...
Shocking.
Shocking.
Wow.
Shocking. I know.
That's where she's getting her information.
Yes. Well, okay, shocking a couple things, right? The European Union decided to use this company that partners with the CIA and that's what they're going to that's what they're going to hang their hat on for disinformation. You don't think there's any bias there? You don't think there's any problem there? Okay. Also, European taxpayers are paying for this report from the CIA. I don't think most Europeans that I speak to, sorry, I have a hair in my mouth. They do not want to be led around by a leash by the United States. I don't think European politicians have got that memo, though, because they're fine to hire this company that has a contract with the CIA. Okay, let's pretend that that's not a bias and just look at what they say, right? Because a lot of times I open these and I was like, well, this? Okay, but you got to read it. You got to see what's there. Let's look at what this study says. It says that they find that misinformation is most discoverable on Twitter. What they mean is like, can you find it if you search keywords and things like that? And then they give you a ranking versus where you discover it on other social media platforms. Twitter, obviously, having the highest score of discoverability versus Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and the likes.
When are they going to stop calling it Twitter, by the way?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. This report did come out in September this month, so I guess they should. And they're saying that they only studied 3 countries, which was Spain, Poland, and Slovakia. Well, how did they figure this out, that disinformation was very prolific on Twitter? What they did, they tell us, is they took a sampling approach, searching for specific keywords related to current mis- and disinformation topics. Well, they never define those topics, ever. They make us just sort of guess.
I was about to ask, what exactly are the topics that are
All they give us is that, like, topics around COVID and Ukraine. So we are supposed to trust that what they're saying is misinformation, and we never get the keywords. They also say they ranked disinformation actors, but they don't name them. So we don't know what they mean. They just said, trust us, we know what misinformation is, and we found it the most on Twitter.
Can they give us a case study? Because
they do not.
They don't give us a case study. So the 2 weeks ago, when there was that attack on that market in the Donbass, right?
Yes.
And immediately the Western media came out and said, "See, Russia attacked the market on their own land," right? They attacked their own people. And we had journalists who were there who almost immediately confirmed that it came from Ukraine. The direction of it came from Ukraine. We reported that it came from Ukraine, right? But we would have been labeled misinformation. It took a few days. A week later, the New York Times finally released a report saying that they confirmed it was fired from Ukraine. They confirmed the trajectory. They confirmed it from eyewitnesses. So in that amount of time, they would have probably labeled us as misinformation.
And a disinformation actor.
Right.
Exactly right. So we don't get the search terms. We don't get the parameters at all. We're just supposed to trust that they found it at these rates on Twitter based on their own keywords. Now, that is a bullshit methodology. I have a graduate degree in sociology. I know how to conduct social research. That's not it. You don't hide your methodology. So I'm sorry I cursed, but it's bullshit. Also,
they did have a pretty graphic though that showed that number on there, and that's pretty irrefutable. If
You're
you have
right.
a nice looking graphic with a number on it, I mean,
yeah.
What more do you want?
Yeah, you don't
Okay.
need facts when you've got pretty graphics.
But the headline that we're going with from the European Commissioner is that this is from Russia, that all this disinformation that they're giving you the rates of is from Russia. Well, how do they know that from this report? They don't. They don't even try to see where this disinformation comes from. It's not a part of their study. It was not built in to the foundation of the study. They don't even try. So it could be from Russia. It could be from Atlantis. It could be from Washington.
I hope it's from Atlantis. Maybe you can give us some information about where Atlantis is.
Yes.
That would be fantastic.
If we can IP trace them, that
Yes.
would be nice. So the study doesn't even try to find the source of this. So why is this European commissioner saying it's from Russia? She has no data for that. Why is the BBC repeating it? Do you see where I'm going here? They are creating misinformation based on a study about misinformation, and I cannot. So
based on a study that's backed by the CIA.
right. I mean, let's just pretend it's not. That in and of itself is bad enough, is that they're using the guise of misinformation to perpetuate misinformation.
Right.
And you know I hate the word misinformation. So
I don't even know what they mean anymore. What is disinformation, malinformation? They arrested that
Right.
UK journalist for reporting about Canada, and they called it malinformation.
Well, they're
What's the
using the
difference?
popularity of this platform of misinformation to tell lies. They don't know that it was from Russia. And in fact, we know from the Twitter files that even when Democrats asked Twitter to give them proof that content that they didn't like was from Russia, Twitter said, we can't find that. We don't see any information that this is Russian-based disinformation.
That was before Elon Musk took over.
Yes.
So that's important to point out that this
Right.
was not when Elon Musk was in charge. This was under Jack Dorsey's leadership.
Right. So journalist Matt Taibbi reported on this because he saw internal communication from Twitter saying, we can't give you what you want, American politician. We know you want to say that this is from Russia. We can't find it. So what did those Congress members do? They went and made it up. They found a source that was not reliable, and they went to the media with it anyway. Remember this report from Matt Taibbi.
Matt, before you go real quick, what happened when Twitter said, oh, well, we can't identify Russian bots. We can't identify that this was actually Russian disinformation. That's not what we're finding. Then what did they do to pressure Twitter?
Well, the usual means is they would go to their friends in the corporate press, and Twitter would be hammered by mainstream press organizations who would say basically Twitter is not doing enough to combat foreign interference. As you know, because you were reporting on it at the time, Congressman Devin Nunes got an extraordinary amount of abuse because it was claimed that the hashtag release the memo was boosted by Russian bots. But we now know, based on stuff that we've seen internally in these emails, that there were no Russian bots, that Twitter was actually telling senators like Richard Blumenthal, don't do it, you're going to look foolish, and they did it anyway.
And when they didn't get what they wanted, they went to CNN, the New York Times, Washington Post, and they got stories manufactured against Twitter.
Okay, so what we are seeing now in the EU is a carbon copy of that playbook. Is this like, let's make it up. We don't have any data, but we're going to do it anyway. And the mainstream media is just taking it like a bone, and not doing their own research. So what they're telling us is, this is Russian information because I'm telling you, because we commissioned a study, but don't read it yourself. Now, one more problem I have with this Trust Lab story, I mean, so many, but worth highlighting, is that they don't give us this list of keyword topics. So they could have searched natural immunity for all we know. And right now, we should collectively agree that natural immunity is a great way to protect yourself against COVID, right? We know this now, but that was marked as misinformation not too long ago. They also used these, again, disinformation actors, but they don't tell us what it's about. So these topics alone should tell you that this is not a foregone conclusion that these topics here, that disinformation is disinformation. So, they give us just an idea of how that works, but not specifics. And yet The Guardian and the BBC all felt like, yeah, this is good enough. We'll run with it as a headline. Russia is perpetuating fake news on Twitter. It's a cheap shot. We'll take it without even doing any research ourselves, without even looking ourselves. This is lazy journalism, so much so it made me really mad. And so yesterday on Twitter, I called out the BBC for this. And so I posted this, basically a summary of what I've just told you, that this is based on disinformation monitoring startup. I didn't mention the CIA because, you don't want to just throw too many bombs in one tweet. And I just said, this doesn't attribute these accounts to Russia. Laziest journalism ever. Read the report first, dummies. And so, look at that tweet.
That's as cruel as she gets. Dummies.
I call them dummies.
Dummies.
And so look at the headline there. It said Russian disinformation, right? Well, notice the headline today is different. They took out the Russian bit. Is it because I called them out on it? Because maybe I told them they should read the report? I'm not going to give myself that much credit.
Yeah,
but
let's give Redacted credit. Maybe they watched Redacted.
That tweet got a lot of engagement. I appreciate those of you who shared it because then they took it down. Other media outlets have not done the same. You can just search for the reach of this story and find lots of Russia still there, only because one politician said it, you guys. It's not part of the data. It's worth noting that this terribly done report is being used to justify the EU Digital Services Act, a law that requires social media to report on how they handle disinformation. Well, they should not be reporting to these people who are perpetuating disinformation. This unequivocally a power grab. The government is trying to control speech on platforms that they can get their hands on. They desperately want to. This is what the Biden administration is trying to do now by appealing to the Supreme Court. We don't yet, as of right now, know if the Supreme Court will take up that case, Missouri versus the Biden administration. I am hoping that they do, so that free speech becomes solidified as an American right. And I'm sad to see it eroded in other Western nations. So let me know what you think of this in the chat below.
And it was evened in our chat, says even Linderfell. I'm trying to say your German name correct. If you're German, says Redacted is the best, but the last 2 days the chat has been shut down here in Germany on YouTube. So is Germany censoring our chat? Anybody else from Germany right now? We know that Germany has been doing a lot of that. So let us know if that's been happening in Germany there. Very interesting. Let us know. All right, we've got more news to get to here in a moment. But first, hey, should we tell everyone about the store? Well, I guess we should tell everyone about our store. I don't know if we got the new items up just yet in time for fall. I know that the team has been working on that. But if you go to redactedstore.com, you can pick up, any hoodies or mugs, anything you want to do to support independent journalism. You can do that at our Redacted store. We've got some great stuff over there. You guys were chiming in last night and giving us all kinds of great ideas for new items to add to the store. Trucker hats, dog leashes, all sorts of stuff. We got a whole bunch of great designs coming that you're going to love. Some brand new specialty t-shirts. We've got some of our new taglines, and all of that's coming very soon. So redactedstore.com. You can go over there right now and pick up something to support independent journalism and hopefully support hopefully your favorite independent show, or at least one of them. You know, and there's a few of them out there, so maybe we'd
like to be in
one
your
of them.
top 5.
There are a couple
if
super
you
chats.
please.
Yeah, Robert Brevort. Am I saying your name right? Robert, thank you for your $50 super chat. Says thank you for being a part of our community. We really appreciate it, and thanks to all of you who provided super chats and who've joined us here, became new members tonight, like Caitlin, Jason Watkin, Terry McCarthy, Angie Warren, Kala, Carol White, Rodamir, you said from Serbia. Thank you guys. We'll be covering that. Frank Rizzo, Armin, thank you for your $10 super chat. Time is short. World is coming to an end. Turn your life to Jesus. Thank you, Armin. 16 says that. Lady Trucker, America, rise up. Fight for your men not to fight in this war. Thank you for that. And thanks to all of you for your kind, and Allison Carr and Hey What Up, thank you for your $5 super chat as well, and Allison Carr, you guys are amazing. So guys, thank you so much for supporting our show, and yeah, we've got more news to get to.
All right, yes we do. So what does Jeff Bezos, why does he get a $500 million yacht? Now this is not an existential question like, why do some people have so much and some people have so little? I want to actually ask, why has the international community allowed him to have this yacht? Take a look at this. This is the yacht of an American oligarch, you guys. This is the Amazon founder's 127-meter yacht, but don't worry, it's not being seized by international governments. It's just being moved into the great beyond, so that Bezos can enjoy it. You may recall that he had a fight with the city of Rotterdam because the yacht was so big that he needed to dismantle a historic bridge to get it out launched. And the people of Rotterdam revolted and said, no, you're not destroying our bridge for your yacht. And so he had to sort of work around it. It was a hardship.
There are a bunch of people in Rotterdam that are big Redacted viewers, by the way. We got to meet them a few weeks ago in Rotterdam, and they came up to us. So, yeah, we got to see that bridge, and it was a beautiful old bridge. And, you know, I mean, I don't know. But the idea that an oligarch could come in and say, we're going to take apart this bridge, this historic bridge, because I want to move my yacht through it. Can you imagine? Like, we're going to take apart the Brooklyn Bridge so I can move my yacht
I
through
cannot imagine the egotism that allows you to even make that request.
Yeah.
Now, why is his yacht not being seized in international waters? Because he's American. Because he is not a Russian oligarch. He's an American oligarch. Unlike this poor fool who owns this 120 million yacht that was seized in Antigua. The owner is Andrei Grigorievich Guryev, a Russian phosphates magnate who dared to own a yacht while being Russian. I'm not really calling him a fool. I just want to make that clear. Since this was sanctioned by the U.S., the people of Antigua and Barbuda have had to pay $28,000 per week in tax money. Their tax money, this is not a rich island, you guys, to pay tax money to maintain the stationary boat, including the salary of an Italian captain at $2,000 a day in diesel to keep the air conditioning running. They can't just let it turn off because mold will spread throughout. It's humid in the Caribbean. But if the owner were American, it could sail on its merry way. What about Bill Gates? Did you know that Bill Gates owns the Four Seasons? This one kind of slipped past me. He's owned the Four Seasons since 2007. I did not know that. How come he gets all of these luxury hotels around the world that are not seized? In fact, last year, in addition to all the farmland, he also bought up a historic building in Rome called the Palazzo Marini. Take a look at that. It's lovely. It's right near the Spanish Steps, so prime real estate location. He says it's a fixer-upper, but still, how come he gets that? This is the question that former NATO analyst Jacques Bode asks in his book Operation Z about the conflict in Ukraine. He says the invasions, illegal and illegitimate, of Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, and Syria by Western countries have given rise to neither sanctions nor condemnations. Disabled Americans or Polish athletes are not deprived of Paralympic Games. British cats not excluded from cat shows. Polish, German, American, British, French, or Lithuanian weightlifters not convicted for crimes they did not personally commit. British, American, or Swiss tennis players not forced to condemn their governments or participate in order to participate in a tournament. Chopin's Polonaise did not become Iraqis, and the atrocities of the Polish military were not condemned. While the Russian operation, it seems suddenly that the West has created a consciousness, but which functions, as we will see, in a very selective and variable geometric way. Good question, right? So let's keep those people in mind, because I think it's a foregone conclusion. We know if you are American, your country is currently occupying Syria, has occupied Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Somalia. We can go on, right? But let's just for now, because this is the most, I would say it's the biggest occupation currently, is the occupation of Syria. We've had Kevork Almassian, who showed you the maps just last week. So, okay, we are occupiers right now. It's incontrovertible. And in fact, Syria has just asked the United Nations for help, not that they will. So by this rationale that Russia invaded Ukraine, right, then Westerners should be sanctioned too for our current occupation of Syria. So then if you're American, you have an American passport, you shouldn't own a car. You better not own anything internationally, right? By this rationale, it should be seized by the international community, because we have all agreed that we should punish citizens for what their government does. Now, incidentally, the idea behind this is that these oligarchs will rise up and turn against their government, and it will bring down the fall of Putin. That has not been the case. In fact, these oligarchs have felt even more, by and large, more empowered to make this sacrifice by their country, by most reports. And I think it's worth saying that American occupation of Syria is an occupation. Russia occupation of Ukraine is not. They were asked to come into that place under Article 51 of the United Nations Treaty, which allows self-defense as an exception to the prohibition against the use of force, because Ukraine had ordered an attack on those people. So it's not the same, but let's pretend that it is. And then talk about like who gets punished internationally and who doesn't. So look at this. This week, Epic Games refused to pay 2 Fortnite champions because they were Russian. The 2 young men posted their communication from Epic Games telling them they could not claim the $200,000 cash prize because they come from a prize-restricted region. But they don't live in Russia. They were playing from Belarus, which is not a prize-restricted region. And one of them holds a bank account in Kazakhstan, which is not one either. Fortnite doesn't seem to care, even though the boys say, one of them's 17, so I will call them boys. They spent their own money to enter. It was expensive for them to get visas. It's expensive for them to train and, have the equipment to be such good Fortnite players. This is their dream. They should have been told at the outset that they couldn't win. Before they put forth all of this effort.
Like you can't enter because you're in a restricted zone. So, you're going to win $200,000. Sorry, you don't get to keep that money.
They're kids, right? They're kids who are playing a game. What is the purpose of not giving them their money?
It's ridiculous. I mean, to me, it's outrageous that these kids. You're basically blaming these kids for your government's politics. You're basically saying that these kids have anything to do with the government's politics. Even the damn Olympic Committee has been walking back their overreaction to everything on allowing a path to Paris 2024 for Russian athletes. And you had the football league, which is now allowing Russian athletes to participate again. Tennis is saying we're going to allow them to. So
yes, but Epic not Games, with their flag.
Oh, they can't carry their flag.
So think of, American tennis players or American golfers not allowed to play with the American flag because of what their country has done. That it's the equivalent. You cannot make an argument that Tiger Woods shouldn't be able to play with his flag, but I'm sorry, I don't know any Russian golfers. Do you?
Not off the top of my head.
Okay.
No, you put me on the spot.
Sorry.
I know a lot of golfers, but I can't think of a Russian one off the top of my head.
But yes, we would never do this to America, right? So why do we agree to do it to Russian, not even people, things? Like last year during the European Tree of the Year competition, a tree was banned because it was planted by Ivan Turgenev nearly 200 years ago. We sure showed that tree and dead novelist.
Can't call it a Russian oak anymore.
Is the idea that this novelist is going to somehow overthrow Putin?
Yes, from the grave.
For 200 years, like, yeah, go haunt Putin until he like gets out of Ukraine, and we'll acknowledge your tree.
Right.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Oh, someone in the chat, Ollie Fox, says Fortnite took their entry fee. No problem. So Epic Games was glad to take their entry fee. No
That's
problem.
a good point.
By the way, side note, today it was announced this afternoon, Bloomberg reported that Epic Games is now having to lay off 16% of its staff. Go woke, go broke. Is this like a woke move that's driving people away from Epic Games? 870 employees are going to were canned today by Epic Games.
Maybe they just can't. Maybe they made those kids win so they didn't have to pay this out.
Right. They're like, 200,000? Okay, well.
Give it to the Russians.
We'll just get,
and then we'll pretend we can't. Okay. Now look at the dogs. They really stick it to those Russian dogs. This dog competition bans these breeders because they had Russian owners who dared to want to put their own flag on their dogs. You can recognize the hypocrisy and the absurdity here. I hope I shouldn't have to go into it.
But by this account, I mean, Americans wouldn't be allowed to compete in anything. The amount of occupations that the United States is currently involved with illegally. I mean, Syria has been asking the United Nations, this is an illegal occupation of Syria. The United States is illegally occupying Syria, stealing its oil.
Yeah.
As the Cradle reports, over 80% of daily output of Syrians' oil is stolen by the United States. So by that measure, Americans shouldn't be allowed to participate in anything.
Yeah.
Epic Games, anybody who was an American who participated in your Fortnite championship series, kick them out. They're in a restricted zone.
Yeah.
Can't take those prize monies home.
These little 5K races that I like to not win.
You're not going to be able to do it.
I shouldn't be allowed.
Not going to be able to do it.
Not going to work here anymore. So again, what we were saying is that we should have learned this from the Japanese internment camps. You don't punish people for what you think of any government. Just today, the Union of European Football Association says that they will readmit Russian junior teams to international events, but they cannot fly their country's flag, and they will not be allowed to play the national anthem. So, again, I guess while I feel this way, I should not try and win those 5Ks that I don't even come any close to.
No,
I should not enter our dog Grover in any competitions until my country gets out of Syria.
Yeah, or all the other places we're occupying, and the 900 military bases that we have around the world. Hey, I actually covered this story. I went a little bit of a deeper dive on this Epic Games Fortnite thing on my personal channel. If you're into gaming only, if you only care about gaming, you only care about like retro games and stuff like that. It's a little side hobby that I have. So I have it's my YouTube channel. It's just Clayton Morris on YouTube. It's a little side YouTube channel. I've had it for like 15 years. And so I'll post some tech things over there. And if you like games and stuff like that, come on over, join me over there. A couple of people found it from the channel and said, wait a minute, I watched Redacted. I didn't know you talked about this stuff. So if you feel like it, come on over there. I just posted a video about Epic and their layoffs and the hypocrisy on all this. So I did a little bit of a deeper dive on some of those numbers. If you'd like to check it out, come on over and check it out.
All right. Also, I would like to, before we go, thank a new friend of the show, João Nuno Pinto, for inviting Clayton and I on a Portuguese talk show today. This was our first time on Portuguese News, and it was very exciting for us to be a part of in our adopted home. The media here.
And like-minded media,
yeah.
Free thinkers and independent thinkers about the world.
So my segment will be on that show tonight, if you watch Portuguese TV on Curiacas TV, and Clayton's will be next week. And if you will, be kind, because it's my first time speaking on the media in Portuguese. It was a desafio. It was a challenge for me, but I wanted to do it so badly. And
you did a great job.
I got it done. Yeah, it was, like I said, my accent's really bad, but I've been here for 4 years, and I felt like it was a challenge I really wanted, and they were really patient with my poor accent, my poor American accent. So if you get a chance and you watch TV in Portugal, please do check it out.
Yeah. The language is muito difícil. Muitos verbos.
Yeah.
Many verbs.
I would say like 1 in 10 of my verbs are poorly translated, but it's still, you know, it was just, I had it on like one of my goal lists is I will be able to speak professionally in Portuguese this year. And then this opportunity came up and I was like, no, I can't. But I did it. So anyway, yeah.
Good job. And so thank you, of course, for hosting us there. It was a lovely morning to spend with the team over there. They're really fantastic. So, and it was crazy to be back in a proper TV studio again.
Yeah.
You know, after leaving mainstream media, after leaving Fox News. When I retired from Fox News and walked out of that studio that day with the massive cameras and the boom cameras and the cradles and the crane cameras and all of that stuff.
We haven't been into a TV studio in quite some time.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to get you the name of the show, but
all right. Well, that's all right.
It's in Portuguese.
Yeah.
So. Okay.
So thank you guys so much for joining us on this Thursday, and please subscribe to the channel. Oh, I forgot to mention our newsletter. To the 40,000 of you that are watching us right now, the 20,000 on Rumble. Thank you so much to the 20,000, 21,000 of you here on YouTube. Thank you. Let me click over to Rumble. Make sure I got my numbers right. Yeah. So 20,000 there, 20,000 here. Thank you guys to the 40,000 of you watching tonight. Please subscribe. We have a daily newsletter and it's totally free. And it's our way to stay connected with you because these platforms love to censor us. They love to ban us and block us. They've done that multiple times. And when we got banned on YouTube a couple of months ago, we couldn't post anything. YouTube won't allow you to post anything. A community post, you can't even pin a comment. You're not allowed to do anything. And so the only way we were able to communicate with you was through our newsletter and to be able to tell you, hey, join us on Rumble tonight because we can always talk on Rumble. So anyway, our Redacted newsletter, we try to bring a lot of value to you with the newsletter. We publish it Monday through Thursday. So you'll get a new one on Monday, but it covers the news. We cover some of the big stories that you might have missed while you were sleeping, and we publish it at about 7 a.m. Eastern time. And the way to sign up for it is to go to redacted.inc. That's the website. It's not .com. It's .inc. Put in your email address, and you'll receive a welcome email. You have to confirm it in your inbox. Otherwise, it probably goes into your spam folder. Gmail labels us as dangerous, so be careful. It's a very dangerous newsletter because we try to tell the truth. And then just confirm it. And then the following morning, you'll receive the newsletter. Like I said, the next one will come out on Monday. So again, totally free, and you can read it in about 5 or 10 minutes over your cup of coffee.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, that does it for us this week. You will see us here live again next week. Someone wrote me an email and said, say the time zones. You'll see us again on Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. That's 1 p.m. Pacific. The newsletter comes out every day, Monday through Thursday, and we will have content for you over the weekend. So please stay tuned to Redacted. Catch up on anything you missed. Like, share, subscribe. We call those the reruns, even though no one says reruns anymore.
Yeah, and big 9/11 interview on the 9/11 attacks coming out tomorrow. It'll be available first for our Plus Club members. So if you're a Plus Club member, great. Thank you guys so much for supporting our show. That'll come out first tomorrow, so you guys can see it in the Plus Club, and then it'll be available later on. But tomorrow, as if you're a Redacted Rebel, then you will get that interview tomorrow. Really, really eye-opening. I had chills doing the interview. That I literally was sitting there and I looked down at my arm and I had goosebumps because of what I was hearing. So, and that doesn't happen often to me because I think in this business I've heard a lot of things. So really, really troubling things, but we'll share it with you on the 9/11 attacks. So anyway, guys, check that out. We'll see you guys over the weekend and have a great rest of your night. Bye now.